Is your to-do list getting a little too long? Are you tired of wasting your time with dull, repetitive tasks? With no-code automation, anyone can start removing tedious work from their daily schedules. Today, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started with an automation provider that's perfect for anyone already using Microsoft apps at work. Microsoft Power Automate. Hi, I'm Tom from XRay.Tech, the workflow company. At XRay, we use no-code automation providers and tools like generative AI to help enterprise teams save time and create more reliable workflows. To learn more about XRay and our services, you can visit our website, xray.tech. If you'd like to see more tips and tutorials for automating your daily work, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to Power Automate, explain what it does, and show you how it works. I'll walk through the process of building your first automation, or flow, in Power Automate step by step. We'll connect OneDrive to Slack for simple alerts, so you can see how the platform works firsthand. Finally, I'll go over some pricing info and briefly explore what distinguishes Power Automate from other automation providers like Zapier and Make. We've got lots to cover today, so let's get started. First, what is Power Automate? Power Automate is a no-code automation provider developed by Microsoft. Power Automate supports Microsoft's popular suite of business software, as well as hundreds of other apps too. Automations, or flows, that you build in Power Automate will let you run automated actions in one or more apps whenever a specific event occurs in another app. Alternatively, you can build automations that run on the press of a button, or automations that run on a predetermined schedule. These are just a few examples. Just like with other automation providers, the possibilities and combinations of apps are virtually endless. If you'd like to explore what's possible with the apps that you use every day, be sure to check out XRay.Tools, a free automation search engine. On XRay.Tools, you can see which automation providers support your apps. We've indexed Power Automate, Zapier, Make, Workato, Bardeen, and the open source N8N. You'll also receive a comprehensive list of every trigger, action, and search step available in each provider, so you can plan your automations in detail. Just go to XRay.Tools to get started. You can also find the website embedded in the XRay Workflow resources board linked in this video's description. Now, in addition to automating web apps, Power Automate also supports robotic process automation, or RPA. With RPA, you can automate work in your desktop applications. This can be a very useful feature, but since we're primarily focused on web-based applications on this channel, it's not something we're going to be covering in this video. Let us know in the comments below if you'd like to see a video exploring Power Automate's RPA features. But for now, let's dive into building your first automated cloud flow in Power Automate. Here's the automation we're going to build. Whenever a new file is created in a specific OneDrive folder, an automated alert will be sent in Slack. Note that this automation would also work with Microsoft Teams, but your Teams account will need to be part of a company or school workspace. Individual accounts won't work. You can build and run this flow with a free Power Automate account. Just go to make.powerautomate.com and log in with your Microsoft account or create one free. You'll also need free accounts in Slack and OneDrive for this automation, but you can use the same Microsoft account for OneDrive and Power Automate. To begin building, open up Power Automate and create a new flow. To start creating a new flow, you can click on Create either in the middle of the home screen or on the left-hand sidebar. Then you'll see several options to choose from. Instant Cloud Flow lets you start an automation in your web apps by pressing a button or sending data to a webhook. Scheduled Cloud Flow allows you to set an automation to run at specific times and is also designed for web apps. Desktop Flow is, big surprise, for automating tasks on desktop applications. And finally, Process Mining helps you pull and analyze data from your Microsoft apps. But for our purposes today, we're going to use the first option, Automated Cloud Flow. This option triggers automated actions in any web app when a certain event happens in another web app. Click Automated Cloud Flow to create your new flow. Next, you need to name your flow. Make sure the name is brief but descriptive. I'll call mine Slack Alerts for New OneDrive Files. As you start building more automations, you'll want to make sure you can easily keep track of each flow and what it does. After entering a name, you can pick the app and event that start the flow. Look up the app you're using, in this case OneDrive, and find a trigger that fits what you need. We'll go with when a file is created, properties only. If you're not sure which trigger is best, you can do a quick Google search for more info or just try using a trigger and see what data it gives you. After choosing your trigger, click Create. Then, you'll need to authorize Power Automate to use your information by signing in to your trigger app like OneDrive and giving Power Automate permission to access it. Now, you need to configure your trigger. This typically requires specifying the exact folder, document, or other location that the trigger needs to monitor. For this OneDrive trigger, you only need to specify a folder. Click on the folder icon to open up your OneDrive directory and then pick the folder you want. Note that you can open a folder and look for subfolders by clicking on the arrow. I'll choose the Client Proposals Tutorial folder. Identifying a folder is the only necessary setting, but it's always a good idea to check the advanced options before continuing. Under Show Advanced Options, you'll find two additional settings: Include Subfolders and Number of Files to Return. Enabling the subfolders option will ensure that the automation also runs when a file is added to a subfolder of your designated folder. The number setting allows you to choose the maximum number of files to return. For our example, we can leave these settings to their defaults. However, these could both be very useful if you're working with a lot of files and subfolders. With the trigger all set, click New Step to add an automated action to your flow. Just like with your trigger, you can begin adding an automated action by searching for the app you want to use. I want to send a Slack message, so I'll search for Slack. Then, pick an appropriate action from the list. Since I want to send a message, Post Message is the best match. I'll pick that. Next, you need to sign in to authorize the app, since Power Automate requires authorization in every app it connects to. Just like with OneDrive and the trigger, you need to sign in to Slack to grant access to Power Automate. It's important to note that you may need to try twice, as Power Automate may time out while waiting for you to sign in. If this happens, just try again and it should work. Once you're signed in, you'll see some options for configuring your automated action. Initially, only a couple of options are shown for Slack: channel name and message text, both of which are required. To pick a channel name, click to pull up a list of all channels in your Slack workspace. You can also scroll down to the bottom and select Enter Custom Value, which will allow you to identify a channel by its ID. At XRay, we typically recommend using IDs to identify channels, folders, documents, or any data in automations because IDs remain constant, while file names can change, which may break your automations. However, for this tutorial, either method will work. You can pick from a list or enter the ID. Next, you can compose your message in the Message Text section. You can enter text directly or retrieve dynamic content from an earlier step in the automation. Dynamic content refers to data that has been retrieved, created, or updated by the automation. I'll show you how this works as I build the message. I'll start with a new file has been added to the proposals folder, and I'll add a label for file name. This is all static text. It will be the exact same every time the automation runs. But now, I'll add some dynamic content to actually retrieve the name of the file that triggered the automation. To add dynamic content, click Add Dynamic Content if the window isn't already open. Then, select the content you want to insert. I'll choose Display Name to get the name of the file. If the file that triggered this automation is called Document A, it will say Document A here in place of Display Name. If the file is called Document B, it will say Document B. Dynamic data is referred to as dynamic because it changes to reflect the data that triggered the automation or the data that the automation creates or finds while it's running. Next, I'd also like to add a link where we can open the document directly. I'll add a static label, File Link. Then I'll search within Dynamic Content for link or URL, but there aren't any results. However, there is a piece of dynamic content for ID. When I open a document in OneDrive, I can see that the URL includes this same ID. So even though there isn't a specific item for link or URL, I should be able to append the ID to some static text to rebuild the URL that I need. I'll copy the first part of the URL, everything before the ID, and paste it into my message as static text. Then, at the end of that, I'll insert dynamic content for the file ID. This approach will create a complete OneDrive URL where my team and I can open and edit the file. The lesson here is that automation providers like Power Automate won't always include the exact data points you're looking for, but you can often use what they provide to build what you need. This is a common pattern that you'll repeat as you continue to build more and more no-code and low-code automations. Combine static text with dynamic data to create the custom data points that you need. With both the channel name and message text fields filled out, the only two required fields for the message are complete. However, just like with the trigger, it's a good idea to check the advanced options for your actions to see additional useful settings. To access the advanced options, click Show Advanced Options. For Slack messages, we get several more settings. While I don't want to go into detail about all of them, there are a few worth highlighting. For instance, there's Bot Name. This lets you give your bot a unique name in Slack instead of it just being identified as Power Automate. This is useful for giving context for different automations that are sending alerts or messages. For this automation, I'll name it OneDrive Bot. Slack markup parsing is enabled by default, which means you can use Markdown in your message and Slack will format it accordingly. For instance, I'll add asterisks around the display name to make it bold. A couple of other settings to consider are unfurl links and unfurl media, which I'll set to no to avoid having the message take up too much space. Additionally, you can customize the appearance of your bot message with icon URL and icon emoji. I'll set a file folder emoji to give our message a bit of personality. Now that the message is all set, we can click Save. After saving, a green banner appears at the top recommending that we test this flow. So I'll go ahead and give it a test to ensure that everything works as expected. To test your automation, click on Test on the top right. You'll have the option to choose between testing manually or automatically. Based on our experience, manual tests tend to be more reliable, and you might have to test manually first anyway. The automatic tests will become available after you test manually first. After selecting manually, click Test. Since this is a manual test, you'll have to add a new file to the OneDrive folder designated in your automation. I'll do that now. Then I'll check Slack. When you're testing your automations, your data should be processed immediately. That means the message I configured should already be in the tutorials channel. And there it is. The file name is bolded and there's a link to the OneDrive file. I'll click on it and it takes me directly to the new doc. Great. The automation is working as expected. We're almost done with this automation, but first we should run a live test with the automation turned on. This will show us exactly how the automation will work going forward. Then I'll add a step to alert us immediately about any failures. The flow should already be active, so you can simply add another document to the OneDrive folder. I'll name mine Test Proposal. On the free plan, flows are set to run every 15 minutes, meaning that Power Automate will only check for new files in this folder every 15 minutes. Just go grab some pita bread and hummus or work on something else for a bit, and check back on Slack later. When I check back after 15 minutes, I can see a message in Slack alerting me to the new test proposal document. Awesome! Be sure to save your flow and click on this arrow to view its details and run history. Now there's one more step before this automation is complete. This isn't strictly necessary, but I'd recommend adding a step that will immediately alert you if the flow encounters an error. By default, Power Automate will send error warnings to the email attached in your account. However, these warnings don't get sent out very often. For important automations and steps, you'll want to know immediately if they aren't running correctly. To set up an error alert for any step in an automated flow, begin by editing the flow. Be sure to have saved the flow and exited at least once. This is important. Otherwise, its URL will be different, and you'll want to reference that URL later in your notification. Add a step after the action you want to receive alerts about. Choose Notifications as your app. Then choose whether you want mobile or email notifications. I'll go with email. This will send a message to the email address that's associated with your Power Automate account. Next, you can configure the conditions the notification will be sent for. Click on the three dots menu. Select Configure Run After. Then, choose when the notification will be sent. You can choose to send it when the selected step has succeeded, failed, been skipped, or timed out. I'll check Failed and Timed Out. Then, I'll click Done to commit my choices. Next, you'll need to compose the subject and body of the message that gets sent out. For the subject, I'll write, "Your Slack alerts for new OneDrive files, flow has encountered an error." Then, in the body, I'd recommend including a brief message and a link to the automation so you can easily open it and investigate the error. You can use HTML link tags like this to reference the flow's URL. Again, if you haven't saved and exited the automation before now, the URL will not be correct. It will be a URL designated to create a new flow instead of one referencing an existing flow. So save your flow and click the arrow to exit if you haven't already done this at least once during this process. With your message configured, you can save your flow again. You'll now receive instant alerts when your Slack step doesn't run correctly instead of needing to wait for Power Automate's default error emails, which happen about once a week. With your error notifications set up, you've built your first flow in Power Automate and are all set to start using it to automate your work. If you're currently a Zapier or Make Power user and want to add Power Automate to your stack, you should check out Guardian by XRay. Guardian will aggregate all of the error alerts you receive from all of your automation providers in one place, so you don't lose track of any bugs. It also gives you a convenient portal where you and your team can collaborate to discuss errors and fix them. Just go to guardian.xray.systems to get started. You can also find that link in this video's XRay Workflow resources board. Next, I'd like to briefly cover a few of the interface items and features that can be helpful as you're using Power Automate. First, let's go over 3 ways you can manage your flows and apps. On the left sidebar, you'll see an option called My Flows. When you click on it, you'll see a list of every flow you've built. Hover over any of them to see more options, like editing the flow or turning it off. In that same left-hand sidebar, there are a couple of useful pages hidden under the More button: Cloudflow Activity and Connections. If you select Cloudflow Activity, you'll be able to view all of your web-based automation activity in one spot. This can be a great way to see what your automations are doing at a glance. Under Connections, you can view and manage all of your apps that you've connected to Power Automate. If Power Automate is having issues accessing any of your connections, you'll be able to see and fix that here. You can also share and delete connections here or update the connections to use different credentials. If you click on Templates, you'll see an extensive library of automation templates created by Microsoft's team and regular Power Automate users. These templates can be a good source of inspiration and are an easy way to start building a new flow. Clicking on Learn will open up a new tab with lots of documentation and training materials for Power Automate. With these docs, you can learn how to create new flows and discover every technical detail about the platform. Now let's jump back to Power Automate. These 3 options, Approvals, Process Mining, and AI Hub, are all advanced features that require a premium account to access. Similarly, Desktop Flow Activity requires a professional or educational workspace and won't be available on a personal account. And finally, Power Platform will take you to software for business intelligence, app development, and app connectivity. These can all be valuable tools for enterprise teams, but they're very much beyond the scope of what you'll be doing as a beginner in Power Automate. As I've mentioned, there are several Power Automate features that are only available in paid plans, so let's go over their pricing structure now. By creating an account with Power Automate, you'll automatically start with a free plan. It's limited to only building cloud flows with Power Automate's library of standard connectors. To view what plan you're on and its limits, you can click on Settings, then select View My Licenses. A comprehensive list of premium and standard apps can be found in Microsoft's help documents, which are linked in the resources board in this video's description. Moving on to Power Automate Premium, this plan is priced at $15 per user per month. It offers additional features such as desktop automation in attended mode, or RPA, process mining, AI builder, and access to all of those premium connectors I mentioned earlier. Alternatively, the Power Automate Process plan is available at $150 per bot per month. This represents a different pricing model, setting up a single automation that can be accessed by an unlimited number of users. It enables desktop flows to run unattended, which is ostensibly the main use case for this plan. Both plans offer add-ons for hosted RPA, AI builder, and process mining. It's important to note that detailed pricing information and plan limits are not readily available and may require a deep dive into Microsoft's documentation. For enterprise users, I'd recommend reaching out directly to Microsoft to learn more and discuss your needs. However, for most new users, the free plan is sufficient to try out Power Automate. Additionally, the basic plan at $15 per user per month is comparable to other no-code automation providers and should be all you need to automate processes at a small business. Of course, Power Automate is not your only option for building no-code automations. There are many different providers available, with Zapier being the industry leader and Make being another good alternative. Let's take a quick look at how Power Automate stacks up to the competition. Power Automate has several advantages, especially for users who are already invested in Microsoft's ecosystem. It's better suited for Microsoft's own applications and is more specifically tailored to enterprise use cases. In comparison, Zapier and Make are more naturally suited for small businesses. Without a team like XRay building and managing your automations for you, it can be difficult to use these providers in an enterprise context. Power Automate also offers desktop automation and process mining capabilities in addition to cloud flows. These features aren't available at all with Zapier or Make, which are primarily focused on automating cloud software. However, Power Automate also has its cons. It has fewer integrations than the competition and is not as easy to use. Zapier and Make feature intuitive drag-and-drop interfaces for building your automations, and Zapier keeps adding additional tools to make it even easier than ever to create automated workflows. For instance, you can start building zaps by just writing out a quick AI prompt. In contrast, Power Automate's builder interface is limited to more basic functionality. Ultimately, if your team is already heavily invested in the Microsoft ecosystem, Power Automate will be a natural choice due to its features tailored for Microsoft applications. Just be sure to enter all your apps into XRay.Tools before you start building to see if Power Automate supports them all. If not, you can also try out Zapier or Make. Both Zapier and Make offer free plans, and we've created beginner's guides for both, which you can find in this video's resources board. Automating your company's work doesn't require any code or custom software. With automation providers like Power Automate, you can eliminate tedious chores from your to-do list in a matter of minutes. Try it out today and start creating more time for yourself and your team, and let us know in the comments what you've built. If you've enjoyed this video, prove you're human, like and subscribe for more automation tips every single week. If you'd like to learn more about low-code automation and workflow design, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and you can find all of our content on our website at xray.tech. You can find all those links in the XRay Workflow resources board down below, and as always, find your focus and stay in flow. Trying to future-proof yourself? Start designing the way your team works with no-code tools, automation, and AI. In XRay's Workflow Designer course, we'll show you how to break down every part of a process to find the best opportunities for automation, and how to integrate those automations into your team's daily work. You'll learn how to create time for your entire team, get more reliable results, and give everyone a newfound clarity and confidence in their work. Just go to this URL to learn more. The entire package includes over 2 hours of premium video content, challenging example projects, and tons of helpful resources. The course costs just $250 and gives you lifetime access to a Slack community of workflow designers building systems in dozens of different industries. Space is limited, so join the free waiting list today to get notified as soon as the course is live later this year. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon in our Workflow Designer course.